Greetings, everyone. I am so thrilled to be back in conversation with Keone Hanalei, who I really experience as my soul brother. And I'm so grateful that you're back in conversation. And Keone is founder of Pohala Botanical Medicine and specializes in fern medicine. But you also are a teacher, a mentor of the AlohaMa program, an incredible wisdom keeper and light worker on the planet in this time. So thank you for being back in conversation, Keone.
Oh, mahalo. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to this audience. I feel the same, Heather. I feel like you and I are simply meeting where we have left off at some other point. We are in a reunion right now. I'm so grateful for this reunion, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share more with you, with this audience. And Heather, just really, really want to honor you as a leader of this incredible shift that humanity is now approaching and the choice point to which we are approaching. You are such a beautiful and effective leader in this. And I'm so very grateful to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Keone. And we were just talking before we got on about how amazing it is to be present on the planet in this profound time of transformation. Talk to us a little bit about what you've been experiencing on Maui and this whole crisis that's happened there, but what's emerging out of that, and also this work you're doing around the sacred site there.
Yes. And mahalo, thank you for everyone's prayers. I felt them deeply. Yes, we've had an event here on Maui, and I would go as far as to say that it's a kind of ritual that has occurred on Maui. And I'll get into why I perceive it to be a ritual. This fire that destroyed one of our most historic towns, and not just historic for the island of Maui, but the entire Aupuni o Hawaii, or the entire Hawaiian kingdom. And so this event, this ritual that happened, created a kind of crisis that activated us. And of course, it mobilized us in all the physical ways to which we must mobilize, but it also mobilized us in a very spiritual way. And so we got to dig deeper into perhaps what's underneath, what lies beneath. And something that we've always known, Lahaina, the town that was destroyed, something we've always known is that there is this sacred site, or this vahipana, called Mokuula. And Mokuula was this floating island in the middle of this pond called Mokuhinia. And for over 100 years, it's been buried underneath a park. And the purpose of this sacred site was, it was first a residence to our ali'i, our royalty. It's where they received instructions on how to govern, on how to rule, on how to conduct. But what is deeper knowledge of this site of Mokuula and Mokuhinia Pond is that it's an access point, or an axis mundi, to what we call the Iwi Hilo Vai, or the inner earth waters. And it is through this site that the inner earth waters, the frequencies of the inner earth waters, informs us on the surface, and then circumnavigates and broadcasts. And so because this site has been covered and defiled in many ways, all we're receiving is a little trickle of the inner earth waters, the intelligence of the inner earth waters, when it should be a geyser that's broadcasting and circumnavigating the planet. And so when this event happened, in my pule and my prayers to my kupuna, to my elders, both here and there, it became clear that the focus for me is to Mokuula, and to once again speak about Mokuula and the mobilization of freeing the access to the frequency of these inner earth waters. And I believe it was in our last conversation too, Heather, that we were speaking into, one of the greatest activations is trauma. To activate us is trauma. And that's why I translate this horrific event as a ritual, because it was by way of trauma were we able to finally come into recognition that something has been covered and it's now asking to be released.
And say more about the inner earth waters. What is so powerful about the consciousness of the inner earth waters? Is it that they carry the memories of the earth, the wisdom of the earth? How is it that they then inform us and inform the waters on the surface of the earth?
This is going to become a very important conversation for humanity as we move forward, is the conversation around water. You know, there's more water in the center of the earth than there is on the surface. And many of us are not in recognition of this. These waters, and they're not just aqueducts or aquifers, it's oceans. They're oceans in the center of the earth. It is pristine, pure water. And many of us know that water is a memory keeper. It's a coder. It holds a kind of intelligence, which we can also translate as instructions, how we are informed. We believe the Iwi Hilo Vai, the inner earth waters, informs our very evolution. And because we have been severed of this information and our availability to be informed, we don't know how to evolve. And that's why we are now subjugating our evolution to other things that may not be organic, natural, the things that are synthetic, because we don't have a relationship with the information of evolution itself. In the beginning of the beginning, Heather, we have something that we call in our culture, and everything to which I speak to, let me just credit it. It comes by way of something called the olihelu. In the Hawaiian culture, every family has an olihelu. It's a genealogical chant. And everyone learns this chant. We didn't have a written language because that leaves too much room for mistranslation. And so we all learn our genealogical chant. In the genealogical chant, we also visit timelines and we speak into characteristics of these timelines. When we go all the way back to the beginning of beginnings, before this planet even had an atmosphere, we have this very mysterious thing called the mea ne'e, and it literally translates to plasmic beings. Wow. We believe that the plasmic beings came to Earth, designed the very atmosphere as to ensure that organic life could thrive on this planet. Obviously, it succeeded, right? Yay. But then there's always this contention about, did they go? Where did our founders? These are our founders. Where did our founders go? They must have left. Oh, they're not here. They did not leave. Many people are unaware that plasma is majority water.
Yes.
Our DNA turned into the very water on this planet. And water itself is very mysterious because we still don't know where it came from. Even with our intelligence, we still cannot determine, did it come on an asteroid or a comet? Was it placed here? Like, where did water come from? Water is also considered inorganic. It doesn't have a carbon-hydrogen or carbon-carbon bond. And so it's very mysterious. But we know, Hawaiian Mu, we know that the water is our founders. It's our ancestors. And so they turned themselves into the water. They turn themselves into the water in the center of the earth, and they turn themselves into the water on the surface of the earth. Now, it is our availability to receive their instructions that we may evolve in the natural flow or the affluence of cosmic intelligence.
How extraordinary. So our ancestors and that wisdom is all around us, is within the earth, is within our bodies. It's extraordinary to think of that, Keone. And part of what you're describing in terms of the purity of these inner earth waters, it not only is that the energy of the founders, but it feels like that's the energy of the soul of the earth. And that in our disconnection as humanity, in living on the surface and defiling the waters and the surface of the earth, we've so disconnected from our origins, from the wisdom and consciousness of the earth, of our ancestors, of how we can actually be in our own evolutionary process, like you're describing. And here we're now at the cusp of the age of Aquarius, the great water bearer. You know, as you may know, the symbol of the zigzag for Aquarius is a symbol of water that is our oldest known human symbol on pottery and art. They knew the consciousness of the waters. But we've been on this path of forgetting. And this is extraordinary that you're describing these ways that we can find these portals to come back into connection with the wisdom of the waters, with our origins, with our founders.
Mm. Oh, so beautifully spoken, shared, Heather. Yes. And I love this reminder that the oldest symbol that we find is the depiction of water. And so our oldest relatives had a connection of the awareness of the intelligence and the importance of the water. And you know, water, the water that we can place in our hands, regardless if you put it in a tap, okay? The water that we hold in our hand, it's the same water from the beginning of time because water simply recycles itself. It recycles, it goes through different stages to accommodate its environment. I mean, we often feel it like this too. It designed our atmosphere, so it certainly knows how to engage with our atmosphere.
So, how is it that you are trying to reopen the energy of that sacred site?
Yes, mahalo. Thank you, sister. So I have mobilized this technique and this project of reverse grid engineering. It's called Project Mokuula. And what I'm asking our global community, regardless of where you live on the planet, you are invited and we are so grateful to you. What we get to do is we get to resuscitate this axis mundi, this Pico of Mokuula. This will require every environment on the planet to make a contribution. Because you and I have the voice and the body as human beings, we can be an intermediary, a conduit of the environments to which we live in. And so what I'm asking people to do is there's this glass called Andara. And Andara is this glass that just came about all of a sudden. It's quite mysterious because it just showed up. And many feel it's the Aquarian stone, the Aquarian crystal. Because Andaras, they're unlike obsidian or any other stones because these are naturally occurring, which means they are coded. They already have an inherent coding. Andars, because they're handmade, they're amorphous, not just in their shape, but they're amorphous in that they don't hold a history. This is really important because this means they can be coded. They can be coded. And speaking more into the intelligence of the age of Aquarius, I also feel that Aquarius is the age of coding and coders because of that availability of frequency, energetic frequency, and intellect. And so Andaras, I'm asking people around the world to gather an Andara. And on my website, I also share potential places that you can retrieve an Andara. If you don't know what Andara is, more information on that as well. But to take that Andara, observe your immediate environment, and code the Andara with that environment. And it's really simple how to do this. For instance, I'm located in Haiku on the island of Maui in Ko Hawaii Pai'aina in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. In my immediate environment, as I'm holding my Andara, I'm looking around, okay? I'm looking around, I'm receiving, I'm observing. And the word that comes to me is wise. My environment is wise. And so I code the Andara with the word wise, the energy of wise, the environment of wise. Now I'm going to bring all these environments because they're being sent to Maui. I'm going to take all these environments. I'm going to place them at the site of Mokuula, and we're going to resuscitate that Pico. Notice we just did a reverse engineering of the grid lines. We're bringing all grid lines to a central point to resuscitate it. And I am needing the assistance, the kokua of our global community. And Heather, I have to share something really exciting. Since I released this project and this vision, this dream, I've received Andara delegates from every single continent but Antarctica. So if there's anyone listening in and you have the capacity to code the environment anywhere on Antarctica, please contact me.
Beautiful. This is great. And I'll put the link below so that people can participate. This is wonderful. So you're bringing these energies of the globe to help activate this Pico, and then it's interconnecting with all these environments that are encoded in the Andara. Is that accurate? So it's really creating this harmonic interconnectedness around the globe.
Absolutely. Because once that Andara delegate is coded, that environment will also be locatable to Mokuula. And so it can locate that environment, and thus the broadcasting of the inner earth waters can once again be distributed.
And were you saying before we got on and started recording that there are other Pico locations around the globe? So will it interconnect with them as well?
Yes, and this is one of the big shares and questions that I've received since I began speaking into Project Mokuula is Mokuula the only Pico, the only Axis Mundi? The answer is no. No, there are many. There are many that we don't even know about. There are many that we do know about, such as the Great Pyramid, places like this, Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Yes, those are Axis Mundi Picos. As far as what they are a Pico of, I can't speak into that because not all are going to be Picos to the inner earth waters. Some believe that the pyramid in, I believe it's Bosnia, is actually a Pico or an Axis Mundi to another star system. And so these Picos, these Axis Mundis, in their dormancy, were not communicating. And not just with one another or our own environment, ecosystem, we're not communicating celestially as well, because they've been covered up, just like Mokuula was covered up. It was concealed. There was an attempt to conceal knowledge, truth. Many of the Axis Mundis around the planet have also been concealed. And so it may take extreme events in order for us to once again apply conversation, care into that event. What was it covering? What was it covering? What gets to be resurrected?
That's such a profound way, Keone, of looking at some of the powerful earth changes and shifts that are happening on the planet right now, to see those traumas as portals for opening, for transformation, for our healing and coming back into remembrance of who we are and of this planet that we're a part of. It feels like this is such a powerful time as we move into the age of Aquarius, of remembering the ancient wisdom, of coming out of this period of forgetting and disconnection back into connection and right relationship with the earth, with the cosmos, with each other, with all that is. So these, making these connections, these energetic connections, it feels like it's also correlated with the way in which we're creating, as you and I've talked about, these energetic connections as a soul tribe, creating a healing web around the planet to be helping us all heal and awaken and transform.
Yes, Heather. I feel personally that as a humanity, we have still not properly integrated the cataclysm. And that's why we continue to live in a addiction to crisis. And perhaps that's why crisis is the only thing that can awaken us, because it's the only thing we allow to awaken us, because the cataclysm has not been properly integrated. And we call the time between the cataclysm and now the po'apo, or the blackout, where the cataclysm and the trauma of that has been so shattering to us spiritually. I mean, the nervous system, so shattering. And our inability to integrate the cataclysm has had us in the favor and the interest of survival and crisis ever since. And what you just shared is indicative of we are finally coming out of the cataclysm. For some, they believe the cataclysm happened millions of years ago. This is how long it has taken us to integrate it. But everything that you just shared and everything to which we are witnessing around the planet is now suggesting that we are finally emerging from the cataclysm.
This is so profound, Keone, because my sense is these cataclysmic crises have happened many times on the planet. And most recently, 12,000 years ago, with the fall of Atlantis, the Great Flood, the cataclysmic earth changes. And I think what you're saying that's so important is, and Barbara Hand Clow talks about this in her book, it was originally called Catastrophobia, where she's describing that we're still in a state of PTSD. And what I know as a psychologist about PTSD is if you don't address the trauma, address the fear, and at core, it's a fear of death, or it's a fear of things being out of control, then we cope in ways that actually constrict us from being in our true selves and actually tend to reenact the very thing that we fear. So we humans have become, agents of chaos, destruction, cataclysm with each other.
Yes.
Because we're still caught in this trauma pattern. So part of what I think you're saying that's so important is this is a time to heal so that we can awaken, come back into awareness of who we are, and then be on this evolutionary journey into higher consciousness.
Yes. And one of the great ways that we can affirm this is by finally affirming to the self, the cataclysm is over. I have integrated the cataclysm. I am present now because I have integrated the cataclysm. The cataclysm is pau, as we would say in the language. It is completed. It is pau.
And we are safe now.
And we are safe. Ua malu. I am safe. Yes.
Beautiful. Let's shift and talk about something else that you and I've really been wanting to talk about. The medicine wheel and the star nations. And that you have your lineage and tradition with that. I have mine, but they so tap into the same archetypal wisdom and energies. But share some about your experience with that, because that's also, from my perspective, a profound ceremonial path for healing and remembering.
Yes, yes. The medicine wheel, however it comes about, one of the great supports it offers us is it allows us to truly understand what it means to organize. And that's especially important when we feel into healing. We need to organize everything that's in front of us. We need to organize that to which we know ourselves to be. So there's a kind of coherence. It's within that coherency, may we proceed. There's now a trajectory once again. The medicine wheel in Mu Hawaiian is quite unique because it's not so much, of course, it does correlate with directions, but it's more about 4 star lineages, 4 primary star lineages. And if I may, I would love to share these star lineages, this medicine wheel. And they all correlate to an experiment or experiments. So they all have a lesson that you and I and all of we are now engaging in right now. So organization is important. the first star lineage, which is the oldest star lineage, and that's Draco. In the language, we call it Matalroro. Matalroro. Something about Draco that's really important, and this goes into a lot of our private conversations, Heather, about we feel like we have a connection in ancient Egypt. You know, Thubin, which is a star in Draco, that was the pole star during the height of Egyptian civilization. And so the Egyptians greatly revered Thubin. Unfortunately, Draco has a kind of reputation today. And perhaps I'll uncover why that could be, because of course it's sacred. It's sacred. It's not malicious. Draco, Matalroro, governs the experiments of time, ritual, and death. Death is an experiment. Now, as organic beings. Now, when we feel into those experiments, they have one theme that's very loud, and that's called archiving. It is the lineage of archiving. The ancient Egyptians were the most excellent archivists that we have ever known. They were greatly influenced by the high potential of Draco, of this lineage. Now, in the sky, the constellation of Draco, it's the 8th largest constellation. However, it was much larger. And Draco, of course, is the dragon, right? And this is the element of air. It's the element of air. Draco governs the element of air. And it's the dragon. Many people may refer to the draconians of the Draco lineage as the reptiles. And even in the language, they're called the Mo'okiha, or the reptilians. Now, it is currently the 8th largest constellation. It used to be much larger because it also encompassed Ursa Minor at one point. However, something happened. And for me, like at this point, it's speculation as to why they were severed, why there's a kind of eviction. But Draco is the body of the dragon. And Ursa Minor represented at that time its wings. Its wings. And the dragon was severed, exiled from its wings. And so the lineage experienced the fall. The fall. And so a lot of our perceptions of the draconian lineage now is that of where it currently is in the fall. And to apply compassion to this lineage, when something is accustomed to flying, when it no longer has its wings, it's going to be in desperation and survival. It's going to hide. And this is when our archives began to become hidden. It was no longer freely sharing the archives. Ritual became very selective. Death became very frightening. Time became very constricting. All which occurred when the wings were severed from the dragon. Like on a personal note too, like my kupuna, my elders would share, that someone is predominantly, we're all of all the lineages, but someone is predominantly of the Draco lineage is when the people who just stare at you. And it's frightening, right? You're like, what is happening? It's because they're scanning. They're scanning you. They're skilled in archiving, and it's not malicious. It's not they're trying to scan you to harm you. That's just a natural tool they have, is to scan you and to read you. So I even say, a lot of people who are greatly clairvoyant, a lot of people who are skilled in the clairs, all the clairs, you likely have a connection to the Draco lineage. But remember, and I really want to make this point, because we're moving out of this idea and this fixation of fear. The Draco lineage initially is not malicious. It's not. It's just misunderstood.
And everything, and I talk about this a lot with how we look at astrological energies, everything has its gift, its expression of higher consciousness, and its shadow side. And when we get fragmented from ourselves, then we begin to manifest these ways of being at lower levels of consciousness, but that's not who we truly are. But this is so insightful what you're sharing. And I think it's fascinating that so many constellations began to get fragmented and reconfigured as we moved into modern culture. And what we're talking about with reclaiming the wisdom of these star lineages and with the wisdom and organization of the medicine wheel is how we come back into wholeness, how we recover those lost aspects of ourselves to remember who we truly are and come back into our true selves. So talk about the others.
Yes, most certainly. So the second star lineage, I'm going in the succession of how they were presented in the Olihelu, okay, in the genealogical chant. The second is what we call Hokulea or Arcturus. Arcturus is a second star lineage. This is governs the element of fire. It's fire. Now, Arcturus, Hokulea, governs the experiments of the main experiment I would like to speak into is something known as diamond consciousness. Diamond consciousness. Now let's look at where Arcturus is in the sky, and that it's in the asterism. I'm sorry, the asterism of the diamond of Virgo. The diamond of Virgo. Perhaps I can ask you this, Heather. Can you share with this audience, because this is your work. Can you share with this audience, what is the high potential of Virgo?
Well, from my understanding, Virgo is the harvest goddess, and it is how we can come back into that honoring of the earth, the gifts of the earth, our gifts of service on the earth. And I really perceive higher manifestations of Virgo as being very much about healing and remembering our connection with the sacred feminine wisdom.
Mahalo. Thank you, sister. This diamond of Virgo speaks greatly into brilliance. And so when we go from this air sign, okay, when we go from Draco and then we culminate into Hokulea, because it is a succession. We're not leaving one and then going to another. The other one is coming with us. This diamond consciousness is now culminating into the brilliance of the archives. We're creating a kind of coherency with those archives. And I like to say, because, this Virgo energy is also very organized. It's
about being of service with what you organize, with what you analyze, with what you understand. It's the gifts of the harvest, separating the wheat from the chaff. So it's that art of discernment to bring what's of value out in service.
Yes. And with this fire sign, with this element of fire that's coming through with the lineage of Hokulea, it's igniting something. And so Hokulea is this lineage that has this kind of brilliance, this sharp brilliance, diamond consciousness, where it's bringing things into a coherency. And it's not, as you're sharing too, it's not like it's sitting back observing it. It's participating in the brilliance. And one of the because I love sharing the characteristics too, right? Because my kupuna would share with me about the characteristics of those predominantly of the Hokulea lineage is they are so brilliant. And when they speak to you, they might actually shift to your side and not even make eye contact. And that's actually them being polite because they don't want to blast you with their intelligence.
That's great.
like personally for me, if I was a fanboy of a lineage, it would be Hokulea. The brilliance, yes, diamond consciousness, because it's not just brilliance, you're just spewing data information. You're versed in it. Diamond consciousness.
You've got a lot of that in you, Keone.
Mahalo. And then the next lineage is that which is in the element of water. And this is Sirius or Sirius. And governs the experiments of memory and language because now we're moving into from that diamond consciousness, now moving into how we can express that, how we can document that, how we keep that. And in the element of water, that's where we begin to code our waters with that intelligence, with that coherency. And then we cultivate the languages to which we can now speak into that. And, you know, Sirius and Canis Major, Heather, is that correct? Sirius is in Canis Major, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
That when you look at it in the sky, the Milky Way actually flows through it. And so it's the sea of the cosmos. So of course it would be correlating to the water, the element of water.
You know, what's so extraordinary also about Sirius is it is most likely our binary star. So it is in a dance with the sun, our star, and is the star that guides us through the processional cycle and are remembering, and then are going through this time of descending consciousness and then coming back into ascending consciousness. So she is guiding us in that sea of our own journey of evolution of consciousness.
So beautiful, because that's exactly one of its major powers is it's the navigator. And this lineage navigates us, takes us through by way of language. It knows how to direct, it knows how to put things into words so that things are now finally coherent and relatable to everyone. That's why it's a navigator. It'll navigate us. And then we culminate to the fourth lineage, the fourth, which is in the element of earth. And this is Mokuula or Pleiades, the Pleiades. And what's so exciting about this is it governs the experiment of iron, gravity, and matter. When we feel into where Pleiades is in the sky, it's in Taurus. Heather, can you speak into the powers of Taurian energy?
Well, and the Pleiades are the shoulder of the bowl, but it is, you know, Taurus is so much. And, you know, in my medicine wheel, we work with the royal stars. So the royal star Aldebaran is the eye of the bowl of Taurus, helping us stay grounded in our integrity. I truly see Taurus as supporting us in our connection with the sacredness of embodiment, the sacredness of how the consciousness of the cosmos manifests in form in the life around us, and that it's all sacred.
Beautiful. Because that's exactly the purpose and perhaps even the objective of this lineage is to take all that came before Draco, Hokulea, and then ground it and create a result of it. In form, in material. And we call the Pleiadian lineage, Makali'i, we call them the male uli or the blue beings. The blue beings. And this all you know goes back into the time of Vishnu and that we had blue tinted skin. It's that moment before the carbon contact. But it's to place all these experiments that came before and to create a result of it in form, in structure. And that's why we also feel that Makali is the most contemporary lineage, because it's really what's loudest right now in the experience that we are all having right now. We're translating what we feel, what we believe, what we think, and we're designing actual forms that we feel represent that. That's very Pleiadian. It's a very Pleiadian interaction that we're all having right now in how we choose to transfer the energy that's streaming through, that's formless right now. And this is why being a human being is so thrilling and so exciting, because we get to do that. We get to do this. We get to perceive this energy that is formless, and we get to create a result of that form. And my kupuna would always say with the Pleadian lineage is, this is the lineage that must be very responsible, because we're also very curious. And so we just want to create, boom, boom, boom. So let's be very responsible of what we choose to manifest into form, because it not just affects us, me, it's going to affect the entire collective. And so we get to be mindful and heartfelt about the designs to which we are creating into form, because they're also contributions.
It is so true that the Pleiadian energy seems so strong in people's consciousness right now. And I wonder if part of that, along the lines of what you're saying, is that we are being, in this time of transition, bombarded by these cosmic energies, by these energies coming through our sun also, that are supporting us in our transmutation, in our transformation. And it's sounding like you're saying that Pleiadian lineage can help us consciously choose how we as energy beings give that shape and form.
Mm-hmm. Yes. May we be a collective that no longer creates out of urgency or burden. I feel like that's where the disruption has occurred, because a lot of our creations, a lot of what motivates us throughout the day, perhaps is urgency and then burden. And so there's not an investment of the intelligence, but also the beauty in our potential as creators. Mm-hmm. And so once again, satiating any kind of urgency, this of course goes back to the cataclysm is over. I am safe. I have integrated the cataclysm. And now we can be fully present to discern. That's the key word, to discern what we will select and choose to cultivate and transfer into form, which simultaneously will and must be a contribution to humanity.
Well, and I think this circles back to something else you and I have talked about that comes out of the ancient Egyptian lineage, comes out of your lineage. You know, in the ancient Egyptian lineage, it's that understanding of Ma'at, that everything is meant to be in right harmony, right balance, right relationship with everything else on the earth plane in relationship to the cosmos. So what we give shape and form to needs to be a part of that harmony of the spheres. And not only have we been, I think, as humanity in this time of disconnection, creating out of urgency or out of that sense of burden, but also out of a sense of destruction, which again, I think is a trauma response. So as we can heal and as we can awaken and as we can reclaim the wisdom of these lineages that you're describing, we can come back into being co-creators of what's healing and bringing us back into harmony.
Mm-hmm. Yes, my sister, thank you for sharing that. And if we just go through all the lineages, be aware that we don't need to be predominantly of one or the other. We are of them all. And so harnessing those powers, first being available for those powers, which means I must offer consent. You know, the universe is very sophisticated, and the universe will not touch us in the way that's most in our benefit if we're not offering consent. Perhaps, like you're sharing, many of us are giving consent to destruction because that's the only thing that's stimulating enough. That's what makes me feel alive. And so that's what I'm unconsciously perhaps offering consent to. And so we get to reorient ourselves into, what am I truly offering consent to? We can review these lineages. I give consent to be an archivist. I can withstand the archive, the information, without being paralyzed or overwhelmed by it. Know that I'm a leader of it. I meet it in equal measure of power. And this includes being able to hold the archive of death and to not reject it. Transitioning into hokulea and be able to express your brilliance without shaming that, without belittling the self, without the not enoughness, I'm insufficient, all of that, that is simultaneously not offering consent to your own brilliance. And Hokulea lineage will always say, be available for your brilliance. That's it. There's nothing complex about that. And then transitioning into Sirius, speak.
Mm-hmm.
Speak. Make a contribution of your words, of your expression, of your song. Allow yourself to be visible. Allow yourself to be heard. And then coming into Makali'i, Pleiades, what is the result? Earth is an altar. And the very center of all these lineages, the very center that all of them are converging into is Earth. And that's why I was sharing with Heather. I'm like, we're exactly where we get to be. We're the best possible place right now. We're in the convergence of the star lineages. And so here, while we're here, allowing the convergence of all those lineages within ourselves, what are we offering onto the altar of Earth? Earth is an altar. It's a sacred altar. And guess what? We get to live on the altar. Wow. Wow. We get to live on the altar. So we must place something on the altar. This is proper protocol. This is proper protocol. What are you placing on the altar? I like to say it like this, Heather. You know what I will ultimately place on the altar of Earth? My body of work. My entire body of work.
Beautiful.
And so what is your body of work at this time? Is it aligned to your great potential, or are you still distracted in the things that are preventing you of your own potential? If so, make corrections so that when you finally approach this altar, you can lay yourself down, your body of work.
Beautiful. I love that sense of the earth as the altar, and where we can co-create together what is sacred to put on this altar. And also from, my experience with the medicine wheel, it is a journey of integrating all these aspects of ourselves to come to the center where we align with the energies of the earth and cosmos, and we remember that we're soul selves here in a human experience to be integrating these energies, to be co-creating together. And that there's a way in which what you're describing, Keone, in connecting to these star lineages is about coming back into that connection with the earth and sky and moving out of our sense of ego and our sense of separation into our remembrance that we're a part of the oneness of all that is. And then how we uniquely manifest our gifts is a fractal of that cosmic consciousness, of that star wisdom, and how we manifest it on earth.
Yes. We are all in the saga of our lives, but we're in it together. We're in it together. And so there's a great level of compassion because there's a lot of relatability with all of our processes right now. And that story and that tale of subordination, I feel it. It initially occurs in Hokulea, in the Arcturian lineage, because we become aware of so much brilliance that many of us are frightened of our own brilliance. And so we become subordinate to other people's stories, other people's beliefs, and then we end up acting those out. We transfer that into Sirius, and we speak on behalf of others, not ourselves. And so in Hokulea, in that lineage of Arcturus, just be available and allow your brilliance to be friendly and approachable.
Beautiful, beautiful, Keone. And another way that I hold it, because I look at this in terms of in our astrology charts, the energies of these transpersonal planets and how they can work in us and through us, that when we're dealing with these powers of star wisdom, of these energies, we need to be the clear channel for that. It's when we disconnect from ourselves and get caught in that insecurity that we then distort it, or when we identify our ego with those energies to think it's my brilliance, as opposed to this brilliance is flowing through me. And then there's such a sense of wonder and joy that we can feel and be informed by that brilliance as we're honoring it and letting it flow through us.
Mm, mm. You just beautifully express how we can even make a third dimension friendly, because the third dimension is all about contrast, which means it is the dimension that is most friendly with perspectives. Perspectives. That fifth dimension that so many of us feel at home with, that's of course here, but perhaps the interest is not fully there. That's why there feels like a rigidity in the third dimension. Heather, what is required for a rainbow? Because many translate the fifth dimension as rainbow consciousness. What is required for a rainbow to exist at all?
Water.
And contrast.
Water and light and contrast.
Yes. Yes.
Part of the beauty of the rainbow, and part of why I think that image of the rainbow tribe is so powerful, is a rainbow is a unified energy, and yet it's able to manifest in this spectrum of colors.
Yes.
And where we get caught off balance as humanity is when we honor, symbolically the energy of the rainbow, but think, oh, green is the only path to consciousness, or blue or red, but it's actually the full spectrum of light coming through the prism of the waters in a way that we can also express that diversity as humanity in a way that enhances our wholeness and richness rather than constricting ourselves.
Yes, yes. And the rainbow will consistently insist and be available for perspectives. Perspectives. And so when you're speaking into, you don't need to own your brilliance. You just get to share it. Just share it. The perspective is invited right now. And I feel this about patriarchy and where patriarchy has led. Sure, perhaps patriarchy was purposeful at some point, but where it is now, it's more parts harmful. Patriarchy will insist that there are only 4 approved personalities. And so what's happening, Heather, is that we're all competing to be the best at one of the 4 personalities. It's become desperate. However, the last time that I checked and I felt, there are nearly 8 billion human beings, which means there are 8 billion approved personalities.
Great. And what are the 4 that you would say that patriarchy endorses?
Oh, well, there's the overachiever. All the 4 will rely on validation to be validated. There are different ways to which we can be validated. And one of the other 4 that we can be validated is by way of pity. And so many of us, we allow ourselves to be small because that's how we're validated. We are noticed by pity.
Victim mentality.
Yes, exactly. And so, but as I was sharing, we can now become into the awareness that there's more than enough space for every single personality. This is called perspective. This is how the 5th dimension will finally become obvious.
Oh, I love that. And it's so what the Aquarian paradigm is all about, the multiplicity and diversity of who we are, and yet our interconnectedness, our interdependence, and there is no hierarchy of what expression is more of value than any other expression. As long as it's all a part of that harmonic, it's all a part of the unity of the wholeness, the oneness. But we've gotten caught not only in this constriction as to what ways of being are acceptable in this cultural paradigm, but that sense of competition and hierarchy. And we're needing to move back into collaboration and cooperation. And as Elizabeth Sahtouris would say, the plants, the animals understand that diversity and interdependence and interconnectedness. We humans just have to evolve and mature and come back into that remembrance.
Yes, I truly believe and know Aquarius to be an age of leadership. And perhaps if we take leadership from the index of patriarchy, it will say superiority. That's what a leader is. I do everything, everyone stands behind me, and then I get all the accolades. That's not leadership. And this was in our last conversation, you and I, Heather, we clarified because this is actually a very feminine energy leadership, because leadership is all about delegation, to delegate. That's why that feminine energy will always insist everyone is invited to make a contribution. You're good at that. You're good at that. You're good at that. I'm good at that. Let's contribute. That's leadership. A leader knows how to delegate.
Well, I found our last conversation, Keone, just so profound in terms of the ways in which you described that sacred feminine wisdom as the foundation from which the sacred masculine can find expression, and that's in each of us. But I think the other facet of the sacred feminine energy, it is about relationship, and it is about being in right harmony. So when that delegation is happening, it's about how to be in service of the whole of humanity. And then we can act in expression to live that out in a way that is of service to the community, to the whole.
Absolutely. And this leads to the golden ratio, I feel, of interaction itself, and that's called mutual admiration. And this is what the feminine will always teach, that the objective of our delegation is so that we meet in one another in mutual admiration. This is where, remember, power is met with power, so nothing is overpowered.
Beautiful. And doesn't this also relate to AlohaMa, self-reflective love, that when we are in right relationship with ourselves and in compassion and love for ourselves, then we emanate that and foster right love, right relationship with the other.
Yes, AlohaMa will never favor isolation, hoarding of one's power. It's about sharing it as a contribution. This will require a kind of confidence within ourselves. And that self-love is the highest potential of confidence, where it's okay to be exposed. It's okay to be seen. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm not here to compete with you. I'm here to make a contribution.
And then we can delight in the uniqueness of our own self-expression and gifts, and really delight in the full expression of the other.
Because there's no sense of competition anymore. So I don't need to examine someone and try to read them so I can learn or predict how to overpower them. It's just about celebrating one another and not feeling threatened by one another anymore.
Keone, this is all so profound. And I think part of what we're describing is what we're capable of, what we're really meant to be remembering and experiencing as we're moving through this time of healing and this time of transformation into that fifth dimensional reality, into that higher consciousness and the Aquarian paradigms. So I think part of what's so powerful in what you're talking about today is how important it is to not be caught in the trauma patterns or those ways that we are constricting or disconnecting from our true selves, but coming back into that right alignment, coming back into that remembrance that we're in the center of the medicine wheel. We're sacred as we stand on that altar of earth. Everything here is sacred.
Yes.
And participate in that and honor that and be in reverence to that and be an expression of that.
Yes, Heather. And may I also suggest, when there's an awareness of that, relax into it.
We can enjoy being here.
Right, right. Enjoy. That's like how my kupuna would say, right? Anytime I was upset or I was sulking or whining or anything, my kupuna would say, boy, look, listen, taste, feel, enjoy.
Oh, beautiful, Keone. Well, that's a beautiful note to end on. But thank you so much for your wisdom, so much for the way in which you're helping us reconnect to this ancient wisdom to be in this time of transformation. Thank you for being on the planet in this time. And we're going to keep doing this, Keone.
Yes, yes, my sister, and thank you to you, and thank you to this audience. And we're all in this together. We're all in this transformation together. All the growing pains and all the reorienting, we're all in this together. Just remember, your brothers and your sisters are incredibly relatable to you. Open up. We have the a saying in Hawaiian. It's pa vale pu'uvai, and that means open your heart wider. It's safe to open your heart wider.
Oh, beautiful. And as we do that, and that's part of what's beautiful about this community, then we're opening our hearts, we're connecting heart to heart with each other around the globe and really activating this healing energy around the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brother Keone.
Mahalo, Sister Heather. Mahalo to this audience. AlohaMa.
Blessings to all of you.